What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Mile High Hoops podcast. As always, I am your host, Zach By, and as always, I appreciate you spending a sliver of your busy day with me here on the podcast, reacting to a lot, and somehow not a game was played since the last time we spoke earlier on Tuesday. It is Thursday afternoon. I hope you guys are doing great. We are just a little bit over 24 hours before Game 3 in Minnesota between Timberwolves and Nuggets, and every fan is different, how they're interpreting the way that games 1 and 2 went, what kind of shot they give the Denver Nuggets in Game 3, but also for the series. We're talking only 5 times since 1969 when the home team loses twice, has come back and won the series. So it's been done before. Are these Denver Nuggets against these Timberwolves that exceptional that they can be the 6th team since 1969? That remains to be seen. In addition to just the basketball, all right, and I want to talk about that here, obviously, in a couple minutes, and just talk about what's at stake for Game 3 and at stake in this series if the Nuggets were to lose or even worse, get swept, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. But last night, Jokic was awarded his 3rd MVP. All right, and in true Jokic discourse fashion that he's got nothing to do with, it became a viral moment for all the wrong reasons. But let's talk about the right reasons first. Nikola Jokic, 3rd MVP. This guy is an absolute legend. He becomes just the 9th player in league history to win the MVP. We have been talking on this podcast the exclusive list that is 3-time MVP winners. So this is not new to you. If you've been rocking with me here on this podcast this year, we've been talking about it for probably 5 months now. But let's go over the list one more time. Players in NBA history to win 3 MVPs. It's Bill Russell. It's Wilt Chamberlain. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's Moses Malone. It's Magic Johnson. It's Larry Bird. It's Michael Jordan. It's LeBron James. And now it's Nikola Jokic. That is the list, all right? You don't need all 10 fingers to count them. It's among the most rarefied air in the history of the NBA. And all 8 of those players, for me, are amongst the 20 greatest players in the history of the NBA. And it would probably, and really, like 7 of the 8 are arguably top 10 to 12 players in NBA history. Certainly in the top 10, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those 5 undoubtedly are in my top 10. If you want to throw Bill Russell in there, that's totally fair. 11 championships kind of speaks for itself. Basketball wasn't developed at that time, not even close to what we even saw in the 90s back then. Wilt Chamberlain is not for me for reasons I discussed in the past. I think he's an overrated player for being a superhero in that era of 6'7" centers, and he didn't win. And that's kind of problematic to be top 10 all time. Stats alone won't do it for you. But he's in this incredible list. He separated himself from other great all-time players along this journey, and it's we have to just be mindful of how lucky we are to be watching Nikola Jokic. I mean, this guy is so special, and the way he goes about his business is insane. And it was a landslide. This was not close. Okay, this was not, you didn't need a recount for this one. This was more like Ronald Reagan in the 80s, just blowing out the opposition. 79 first place votes for Jokic. The next highest was 15 from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. All right, he's the first center in 6 decades to win MVP 3 times in 4 seasons. Kareem was the last person to do that. 73, 74, 76, 77. Jokic also the 9th player in NBA history to win at least. Well, we just went over that. I'm just going through my notes here. Joined. So Jokic is in his 9th season. He played 79 games this year. His most, all right, since the 2018-2019 season. So this guy, after the shortest offseason in his history, played in nearly every single game, and he joined Wilt as the only only players in NBA history to finish in the top 5 in total points, rebounds, assists in multiple seasons. All right, it's Jokic, it's Wilt, and it's Elgin Baylor, are the only players to ever do that. He's also just the second player to record 2,000 points, 900 rebounds, and 600 assists in a season. That's a familiar stat. He did that a few years ago, 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 500 assists. So he just adds to another feather in that sort of statistical combination, all right? He's just an all-time great player, all right? But that did not stop Shaquille O'Neal from, upon bringing him on the TNT announcement, to tell him directly to his face that he should not have won the award, and it should have gone to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And it does not make sense. It should not make sense to you. Not the argument, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does have an argument, all right? But it doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form to do that to Jokic's face upon his arrival to the interview. It was like school in July, no class, all right? And it was disrespectful. It was rude. It was wrong time and place. I understand Shaq, who's one of my favorites of all time. That was my first ever NBA jersey, number 32 in blue, black jersey, blue pinstripes, Orlando Magic. Shaq was larger than life when I was falling in love with basketball. And he's someone that I still have valued his opinion through the years and valued his point of view. But his effort to keep it real with Shaq to his face was lacked tact. It was wrong time, wrong place. I absolutely hated it. And here's my other least favorite part about it. My least favorite part about stuff is when you light fire to an argument that you're actually not prepared to have. Shaq said, well, SGA is the ultimate stat stuffer. I can't think of a bigger stat stuffer than Nikola Jokic. Well, they had the number one seed. Yeah, but they won the same amount of games. Each team won 57 games. So if you have one guy, all right, so let's just have a really quick microwave conversation, because I don't want to partake in it and like breathe life into it when the basketball people who voted on it, it was a landslide. So, but we'll do it anyway, just here real briefly. If SGA and Jokic won the same amount of games, by NBA rank, SGA is the third leading scorer. We understand that, right? He didn't lead the league in scoring, and he also wasn't second. Okay? So we have the third leading scorer and the 10th leading scorer in the sport, both top 10, separated by about 4 points, okay? Rebounds, Jokic is 4th. SGA is 58th in the NBA. Assist as a guard, Jokic is 3rd in the NBA. SGA as a guard is 19th. Field goal percentage, Jokic is 10th. SGA is 25th. You look at the advanced stats, they all check Jokic. The raw, it speaks for themselves. The stats speaks for themselves. So it is what it is. But this is where we get with the discourse, where you end up pushing another player's head down to raise someone else up. I don't like doing that. SGA is a great player. 50-something 30-point games, youngest team in the NBA. If you thought he was most valuable, that's good. And you can build that argument. But Shaq didn't build the argument and then said it to Jokic's face. That's hollow. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Even had he built the argument, I didn't like him leading the interview with that. Give your opinion after. You certainly gave it before he ever came on. So I didn't like it. Jokic doesn't deserve that. And I thought that was just another ugly moment during this MVP discourse that we've been having for 3-4 years now. It's crazy. Crazy. Okay. Other stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on Jamal Murray, all right? I said everything I wanted to say about Jamal in Tuesday's episode, but I also feel disingenuous not circling back, because he did speak to the media for the first time on Wednesday, and man, I thought I was so disappointed again. I don't know what to say. I'm not gonna misrepresent myself and say, hey, he handled that well. He didn't. It was 2 days ago. What's there to talk about? Well, something. Can we talk about it at all? Because you didn't speak to the media after game 1 or game 2. So this is the first time we've had a chance. And did he say the phrase, I take full responsibility? He did. But everything around that phrase was a total lack thereof. He was dismissive. He once again made a media member feel small. Do you have any basketball questions? I guess not. Come on, man. you acted like a child. And now you had 2 days to think about it. You could go about it any other way. And I just thought it's got to grow up a little bit. It's got to grow up a little bit. And he got blasted by Mike Greenberg, who articulately laid out over a 2-minute segment on ESPN Get Up why in Mike Greenberg's 35 years, and Mike Greenberg's not like a big bombastic hot take guy. This isn't Skip Bayless or one of these guys. He's like, this is kiddie stuff. My 35 years, I haven't seen this sort of sequence where you're throwing a towel at the ref. You're throwing the heating pad at the ref. It's on the floor. You're doing the money sign towards the ref. You're down 20-something points. And then 2 days later, you have time to think about it. And it was just disappointing. So anyway, that's just kind of where we're at. I'm going to just keep moving forward, and then we'll keep talking about basketball here. But it felt disingenuous to not like share my opinion on that, how he handled himself on Wednesday. Just a little bit more disappointment in that category. Okay, let's shift gears. What's at stake for the Denver Nuggets here as we're on the backstretch of this podcast before Game 3? Utilitarian-wise, just looking at just the function of the team in basketball, you'd be potentially, if they get swept or get gentlemen swept, you're losing a year of Jokic's prime years, all right? When we've all agreed best starting five in basketball, you go get your head kicked in, you burn one of these valuable years, and you only have so many bullets in the chamber here to strike for a title, and this would be a bullet wasted. That stinks. I think if Jamal finishes this series the way that it started, there's going to be some disconnect between he and the organization. Jamal is up for an extension, by the way, and he's been unhealthy in 3 of the last 4 postseasons. Not ideal. But also separate from, and then we don't know what's going on with KCP. I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. And should that go down the way that we're kind of forecasting, where the Nuggets are not making it out of the second round, we'll circle back and have the big boy conversations when it's all said and done. But from a optics standpoint, get ready for the discourse around Jokic and around this team, that they didn't earn the title, that they had a cakewalk to their championship in 2023, that Jokic is not the real deal. He's not a playoff performer, a fraudulent. You're going to hear all this stuff. You're going to hear all this stuff. And by the way, if you are a Jokic defender, in this offseason, you may find yourself defending Jokic. I have some ammo for you, because we are living in a moment and we have a tendency to live in this vacuum. And there's going to be people saying, this is why Jokic sucks, got his butt beat. Look at NBA history, all right? We have seen, not just once or twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times, we have seen all-time great players get their head kicked in a series, okay? We've seen it, all right? And Bill Simmons talked about this on his podcast. I really respect Bill and his longstanding knowledge and history of the game of basketball. And he was citing a few of these, and I remember most of them. Kobe in 2004 against one of the great defenses of all time. Actually, this Minnesota defense reminds me of that Pistons defense 2004. Kobe was just an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. Shot 38% from the field. It was just the wrong. That team was broken, by the way, at the time. If you remember, that was the end of Shaq and Kobe. But this is one of the great players of all time in his physical prime, and he played terrible. It happens. LeBron James, in his physical peak, 2011 against the Mavs, averaged 18 points a game. That's one of the GOATs at the top 5 player of all time. How could a top 5 player average 18 points in the finals? In the finals, and well, he's got Sean Marion hounding him with Tyson Chandler as a backside defender, and it was just a nightmare matchup at the end of the road for that Miami team. And I shouldn't say at the end of the road for the Miami team, but it was a bad matchup, and LeBron fell on his face. Okay, Michael Jordan against the Magic in 1995, his first series back from playing baseball. Got knocked around by a really, really hungry Orlando Magic team that had Shaq and Penny and those boys, and they went to the finals, ended up getting swept by the Houston Rockets and Hakeem Olajuwon and company. Larry Bird against the 1988 Pistons. He had just outdueled Dominique, all right? And it was like, oh my gosh, Larry Bird is just going to solidify another layer of insane, legendary, all-time stuff. And he's got a young Dennis Rodman and the Pistons waiting for him, and it absolutely broke him. Magic Johnson in 1984 against the Celtics. Guys, he was so bad. Go look it up. He was so bad in the finals in 1984. Magic Johnson, arguably top 5 player of all time. Definitely everyone's top 10 list, right? They were calling him Tragic Johnson in the middle of his prime. Okay? So if you're getting ready to defend Jokic, this is not unprecedented. In fact, there's a real historical precedent throughout every era of NBA basketball. So just keep that in mind as the public will pile on Nikola Jokic. Okay. Nuggets have to get back in the series. It starts by competing their rear end off. It starts by what I expected from game 2 from Jokic, and it does start with Jokic. Herculean effort, refuse to lose. He should have a fire underneath his butt. If there's anything left in this team, it has to start with Nikola Jokic on Friday night in Minnesota. Don't turn to the left and right of you for someone else to do it. It's got to start with Nikola. And this is my last gasp. I think it will. I don't know if they'll win or lose game 3, okay? But I think you will see a professional, chips are down, we're not going out like punks effort, all right? And that's my prediction for game 3. And I'm not even, I will give a prediction. I'm just man up. I got Minnesota winning a tight one in a low-scoring, tight game. Call it 99-91, something like that. There's just too many signature hallmarks of teams that are dissolving here. And I wish it wasn't the case. I hope I'm dead wrong. Hope I'm dead freaking wrong. But we got game 3 Friday night, and we got game 4 on Sunday evening. All right? I hope you enjoy these games. I hope there's something to enjoy. And whatever happens over the weekend, we'll be back on Tuesday talking about it right here on the Mile High Hoops Podcast.